Hi guys, today I want to share with you a deck profile with which I had phenomenal success uh, against many types of sets and builds. We're talking about JP, okay, just against the Japanese. Although I show the cards in English, you can imagine that this is a Japanese deck, okay? It is placed in the Japanese format. So I call it anti-meta Bofuri, and the idea that I had when I built this profile is that I wanted to deal with many different situations, all the possible situations that I could think of. Okay, for example, against the standby decks, I want to have options to basically kill the opponent pieces, and there's many of possibilities of doing this in Bofuri. And so against things like Oboro, so basically Climax combos, level 1, that comes back to hand, the bounce back to hand. I wanted to have the option of blinking. I wanted to have some basically option of having a finisher that doesn't cost much and that heals, so that I could use a lot of stock during the game to mill and to refresh safely, and basically to be able to access level 3 with just a small amount of stock, but nevertheless deal damage, heavy damage to the opponent. Okay, so basically the philosophy of this deck is to be able to deal with any possible danger that the opponent could throw at you. Of course, this deck also has certain weak points, which I will underline in this video later. Okay, so it is, I call it the spicy option. 5 pants, 3 books. So when you see this list, the first time you see it, you perhaps rightly think that it's going to be very weak, or at least quite weak. Okay, because some of the choices I made are at first sight a bit strange. However, the synergy between all the weird cards that I've chosen is very good. It's excellent, and it allows you to basically obtain advantage from beginning to end. Okay, so let's have a look at the profile. Let's start with level 0. So first of all, I put 4 copies of Moment Between the Two Maple. So this card is 500 power on your turn, so it doesn't kill anything on your turn, and 4,500 on the opponent's turn. So it is difficult to kill in the opponent's turn. So it is a kind of plussing card. And at the right moment, you pay 1, put this card in waiting room, then look at 4 cards and take a game character from among them. They're all game characters. So this is, in this profile, it's the kind of ideal way to start the game. You start with one of these. Now, I put 4 copies because this is probably the most important card in the deck, because I want to mill on demand at any time, at any point in the game. If I am in danger of leaving too many damages, too many free damages to the opponent, I want to use this card. This is why I put the maximum number of copies available. It's a yellow fix also for the one of the finishers, the Musashi, which I will describe at the end, and the Amagi blinker, which is the only yellow card apart from the Musashi that is important in the deck. Okay, So I cannot basically. I want to stress the importance of this card in the deck because the idea is not to leave any dirty stock, any climax in stock, and don't be afraid to use stock in this profile because you will see that the finishers in the right if you play it the right way, they require very little stock, for example 3 or 4 stocks, okay, usually 4, to have a decent finishing turn. Of course, that doesn't mean that you have to waste stock, and it's if you want to make triple restander, then of course it's up to you. But consider that this profile has been studied to basically always refresh in safety. So this is an important card. Then we have the first apparently suspicious card of the deck, and I can assure you that this is one of the most important cards in the deck. 3 copies of Information Warfare, Sully. So this card has very low power, so it doesn't kill anything, but it has 2 effects. Only one of them is extremely important. So first of all, you look at up to 2 cards from the top of your deck and rearrange them in any order. This is the most important point of this card. So it is extremely useful because it synergizes with the other cards at level 0 that I will show you later. The second fun effect is when this card is placed on the stage from your hand, your opponent declares 0, 1, 2, or 3, and then you mill a card. If the level of the card is the same as the number that has been declared by the opponent, then you draw X plus 1 cards, where X is the level of the card milled. So it is a random plus. The way this card must be used is the following. You first use the second effect, so the one in which your opponent declares the number. And you leave it to chance. And then you top check 2. Okay? After you have the knowledge of what's in the first, 2 cards of your deck, then you can use the other cards that I'm going to present in a minute to obtain advantage. Okay? It is an interesting card. It can give you some, critical, strange moment, some plus. Although you should never rely on it, of course. So it's the top check 2 that is crucial here. Then we use 3 of these super speed dread. This is a Riki. So first of all, it's our only beater on level 0. So when the card is placed on the stage from your hand, if you have another game character, this card gets +1 level plus 1500 power. So this is 3k, level 1. It is usually sufficient to kill most of the stuff in your opponent field. So the second effect is the Riki effect. Pay 1, clock yourself, then reveal the first 2 cards of the deck. If they're both characters, you take them both to hand. Now, this type of Riki is considered to be, of course, a worse version of the search Riki, for example. Of course, it's obvious because the search Riki is the normal Riki clone is, you take from the deck exactly what you want. You take 1 card, but exactly what you want. Okay, the Climax combo, whatever you need at that moment. So it has a degree of it has a perfect degree of certainty, while this one is random. Okay, and sometimes you just happens to to reveal a climax and something else that you don't need. Okay, so it would be a wasted stock and also a free damage for the opponent. However, when this works, it can potentially give you +2 in hand. So if you see it synergizes very well with the previous card with Sally. So if after making the top check 2, you see a character that you need, for example, a level 1 combo, you put it second, okay? You put it as a second card. You rearrange it as second. Then you use this one. You pay 1 clock. You take your combo, and then another random card, which could be anything, and then you leave it to chance. Okay. So if with Sally you see something you're interested in at that particular moment, then you can take it with certainty with this Ricky here, and potentially you can take another random card, and it is not to be underestimated. Okay, so this synergy is quite good. I was suspicious at the beginning, but I wanted to give it a try, and I have to say that 90% of the times it works extremely well. It gives me cards in hand, very often quite useful cards for the continuing of the game, and so I'm very happy about this synergy here. And it's more spicy than the normal Ricky clone. Then we put 2 copies of this card here, Tranquil Waters, Maple. Now this is called sometimes a Rico by the community. So when you put it from hand, you can discard a card, can be a Climax, any card. Then you top check and you salvage a character from the waiting room that is whose level is equal or lower than the card that you reveal. So also this is a very suspicious card in a vacuum. However, with the synergy together with Sally, it can salvage anything, because let's say you top check 2 with Sally, you see, I don't know, a level 3 in one of these 2 cards, you put it on top, and then you use Maple. And so you reveal the level 3 that you just checked with Sally, and then you can salvage anything from the waiting room. Your level 1 Climax combo, or whatever you want, your healer, your brainstorm, whatever. Okay? So this card, of course, is able to salvage all the level zeros, even without knowledge of the top check 2 with the top check 2. And so in this particular deck, usually one puts just one copy of this card, because it is extremely random. But together with the top check to Sally, we put 2 copies, because we always want to be able to salvage effectively our utility cards at level 0. Okay, and potentially also having access to other cards that we need during the game. So I think 2 copies is the perfect number here, and it is a good discard option as well. So it is a way to discard unwanted climaxes, these kind of things. Then we have 1 climax swapper. So this is an oversize. It cannot side attack, so it's a big body. Can be used to kill things at level 0. And it's a normal climax swap. So pay 1, put a climax from your hand to ready room, and salvage a climax. So we are using 5 punts. So this card is not strictly necessary. However, initially I had excluded this from the list. However, I saw that in certain games, I really wanted to, I really wished I had this card in hand, and therefore I included this. And from that moment, things, run very, very smoothly. So 1 single copy of this is enough, and you can very often salvage it with this Rico here. And so you always have access, if you want, to this card here. From practice, I've seen that this is extremely useful to have in single copy. Then also single copy, this extremely important card. This is a tech card that has been really useful in basically all games I've played. One copy of Phase of the Game Maple. So when it enters the game from your hand, you can discard the climax and salvage a character. That's already useful. And then when it goes to Waiting Room, you can put it in your turn or the opponent's turn when it is reversed and goes to Waiting Room in the encore step. You can pay 2, and then you can salvage a character. Okay. So this pay 2, you have to do it with care, of course, because it's 2 stocks. But sometimes you need, especially when you're reaching level 3 or you are level 2. Sometimes it is quite useful to get exactly the restander or the Musashi or the card that you need or the stock swap or the card that you need to punish your opponent. Sometimes I use this multiple times during the game by salvaging with this Rico here, because sometimes I have climaxes I want to discard, an excess climax in my hand that I want to refresh, and then I just use a Rico and then salvage this and salvage then whatever I want from the waiting room, and it's a good card. Single copy because it's a stack card. Then we have probably one of the most interesting brainstorms in the game at the moment. 3 copies of multicolored Sally. Now, the first effect is that you can play any climax from your hand without fulfilling the color requirements. I have to say that this effect is not very relevant in the present deck, but it could be. You never know. But I probably never used the first effect in this deck because there is no problem with color consistency. And then the really important effect is that if you put a climax, you can discard the card, a climax or any unwanted card, and draw a card. This is really, really useful. It has been really, really useful effect here in this deck. So I used it multiple times during the game. So perhaps you do this to discard an unwanted climax. Perhaps you do this because you want to reach you want to mill your deck with, for example, with your combo, but you instead of leaving just 2 or 3 cards in the deck of potentially 3 damages, you want to just mill until the last card, and then you just put 2 copies of this brainstorm, and you discard 2 cards and draw 2, or just 1 copy, and do it once. So this effect of discarding and drawing has been really, really, really important in the games that I played to reach a perfect refresh, in a sense. Okay, and this is also a search brainstorm, so it's a normal search brainstorm tap self. Okay, so the next card at level 0 is 1 copy of Two Faces Within Me. So this is a normal salvage brainstorm that complements the search brainstorm, because sometimes you want to have both in the back normally. Okay, so obviously there is going to be 3 copies of the Sally brainstorm because it's the most important one. It has the most relevant effect, the discard and draw. I have 1 copy of this because you can retrieve it basically whenever you like with the Rico, with the Climax combo level 1. So you can retrieve it really multiple ways. So you always have access to this brainstorm if you want. So you want to be able to access both waiting room and deck on demand. I think it is important, and it has been quite important in my games, that the ability to access both areas to get what you want. Okay. It has also another effect that all the level zeros in the middle position, so the level zeros in the middle position of your center stage gets plus 1k. So it helps a lot if there is some particularly large power character in the opponent's in the opponent's field that you want to kill. So, but this is in single copy just because of the necessity during my games to access the waiting room. Okay. Yeah, as I mentioned here, also sometimes you want to replay. You want to play the level one combo multiple times. So when the opponent kills your combos because they have very low powers in the opponent's turn, and you want to get more advantage, and you have the climax in hand, then you just need this brainstorm here, retrieve it from the waiting room, and play it again, so that you can build your hand. And you will see that building your hand, having sufficient cards in hand during the game is quite crucial, because I mean it's always crucial, but especially for the requirements of the restander, it is quite crucial. Also, the Musashi, we will see that sometimes you need several cards in hand to play effectively the Musashi if you are low on stock. Okay. Then there is 4 copies of the Climax combo, moment between the two, Sully. This is a so-called cigarette combo. So first of all, it becomes very big when you place a Climax, any Climax, not just the Climax of the combo. Becomes 7k with the Climax 8k. So it can kill 1/1, it can do damage. Then when it attacks, you mill the first 2 cards of the deck, and you can salvage a level X from your waiting room, where X is the sum of the levels of the cards that you milled. It combos with the puns. So we have 4 copies of these puns. I will describe the climaxes at the very end of this video. It is highly selective. So, I mean, many people think that this is quite random, right? But to be honest, I always salvage what I want in most occasions. Okay, level 3, level 0, whatever. So it is supposed to be a bit random, but it's not, believe me. It's you're milling 2 cards, okay? So that's enough to more or less salvage, if you have 3 of them, to salvage anything you want from the waiting room. So it's highly selective. It mills, and so you can mill through, for example, through your first deck effectively with this combo. If you don't manage to mill until the end, you can always rely on this brainstorm. Before starting the attack with the level 1, if you want to mill until the very end of the deck, you use this one. Okay, so that you can basically have a controlled mill of your deck, the first deck. And it has a large power. Okay. Then we put 2 copies of this level downer, Shield and Buckler, Maple and Sully. This is considered to be one of the most disruptive cards in Bofuri. It's a level downer, so when you play it from hand, you can discard a card, any card, and then you level down a character, one character in your opponent's field, in any position. So even on the back row. Okay, it has to be level 1 or higher, otherwise it makes no sense to level down. And I mean, this is highly effective against standby. It's highly effective against nasty things that are in the back row. Think about Kaguya. Think about I don't know, more modern examples. I would say Seven Deadly Sins, the Elizabeth in the back row. It's a highly disruptive card. Of course, you have to use it with care because you are discarding cards from hand. So it is a cost. Okay. And but when it is necessary, you have to do it because it is an awesome card. And of course, it's a character, so it's searchable. It's not an event. So it's really one of the most anti-meta cards characters in Bofuri. So we play two copies because with all the tools that we have to salvage, you don't need here to play more than two copies. Okay, you always have access to this card. Then this is a choice that you don't see very often in Bofuri decks. Two copies of Devour Maple. So this card has it's quite. I would say that the first time you see it, it could be quite controversial. Okay, so first of all, if you have a climax, if you attack with a climax, you can blind stock if you reverse the opponent. Okay, this is a useful effect, especially because in this build we consume a lot of stock, we spend a lot of stock, so you want to be able to blind stock when it's needed. Okay, especially to feed your the healers and to have sufficient stock for your finishers and so on. But and this is already a reason to play this card. Okay, this is already a good reason to play this card. Um, but the second reason is that even without a climax, when the opponent becomes reversed, you have to put the reverse character of the opponent in memory. Okay, there's not a choice. This is the drawback. You don't have a choice. But imagine doing this to some particularly important level one combo from the opponent that it's clear that the opponent is going to play over and over again. So I think this card is. I mean, the advantages of this card overcome the drawbacks. Of course, what's the drawback? The drawback is that the opponent can crush useless level zeros on this card in his turn, and then he has free memory compression. Okay, but if you use this card with the proper care, then this card it can be disruptive. Okay, and then to Shimakaze Kai, two copies of Awaken Oboro. So this is just very simple card. When it attacks, it gives X power to one of your characters, where X is the number of game characters you have times 500. So in general, it can give 2k when it attacks. So these two copies are here because if you play against standby, you want to make sure that you can reach high enough power to kill certain pieces of the opponent. The level one Sally combo can reach. I mean, with the climax, she would be 8k. With the Shimakaze Kai, she would be 10k. Okay, so I think 10k is large enough to kill most stuff. If you have a particular 2/2 character of the opponent that you don't manage to kill, you just level down it and then you kill it. So this Shimakaze Kai together with the level downer can basically kill anything. So it's there just for the power. It's a very simple card. There's nothing special, but it has been useful in many occasions. And then one Adachi, so one Guildmaster Payne. Very simple Adachi. It's a good one when this becomes reversed. If the level of this card's battle opponent is higher than your opponent's level, you may put the character on the bottom of the deck. So there is bye-bye Encore conditions, bye-bye anything that happens on that. So it's one single copy. Then we also have one single copy of the stack card, Unbalanced Maple. So this is a kind of, I call it a magi, it's not a magi. When you place the climax, you pay one, and you can look at up to 4 cards from the top of your deck, choose a one level 1 or higher card, and put it in your hand. So it's an Amagi for level 1 or higher cards. This I use it rarely. This is why there is only one copy, which is more than sufficient. However, the, the most important part of this card is the second effect. It's the act effect. Rest this card, choose one of your opponent characters, and blink it to memory. Now, the blink is a very, you use it only occasionally against certain matchups. For example, against those cards that go to, that bounce back to hand or these kind of things. Of course, it's very situational. The blinking sometimes is not even very strong because the opponent can take the card, put it in memory, and then put it in the back row, saving it. But it has been really useful in certain matchups. So it disrupts the effect from the opponents. For example, there are those combos in which when you front attack, they bounce back and they make another card bounce back to hand. So I think in those situations, at least this card is valuable. It's very valuable. So there are situations in which this card is valuable. Of course, you can use it not just for the level 1 combos, but for any combo that is active on your turn. And yeah, disruptive. So imagine using this, for example, against the Meliodas or things that take power until the end of the opponent's turn. Okay, so I think it is a valuable card to have. It has been useful in several games. Okay, then one of the nicest cards in the deck, one copy of Maxing Out Maple. I wish I had two copies of this. However, I noticed, initially I had two copies of this card, but I noticed that even one copy is sufficient because of the, you know, uh, utilities present in this deck to retrieve anything from the waiting room. Um, Basically, it is a card of incredible value, I think. So the first thing is that when it attacks, if you have fulfilled, you choose a character, including herself, and give +2 soul. So you can imagine that there are situations in which you have a climax at level 2, you are almost reaching level 3, you don't want to use that climax, but nevertheless you want to push for damage. Okay, so it has always been, it is always a kind of dilemma. Okay, am I going to use? I know that the opponent has a bad deck state. I want to punish him, but shall I use this climax? Perhaps it's the climax of the combo, the level 3 combo. I don't want to use it because then I'm not sure whether I can find it again, draw it again. So this card helps a lot in pushing for damage in bad deck states for the opponent. And it allows also the siding at level 3. So imagine you have, two level 3s, two of your finishers, and then this card here. And then depending on the situation, you can give 2 souls to, I don't know, to the restander, for example, and then side attack, or you decide to give 2 souls to itself, or you decide not to give it to anybody, you give it to the back row. It is, it allows you to modulate the damage precisely, as much precisely as possible, let's say, at level 3, but also to push for damage at the level 2. So it has multiple uses. It's a very flexible card. It has multiple uses. It's an incredible value card. And the other incredibly useful effect is that when it is reversed, you just discard the card and then you rest it, and then at the beginning of the of your next encore step, you throw it in the waiting room. But it leaves 2 turns. Okay, so it is an important card, really. Then here is the only flexible slot of the deck. I put one copy of this backup, Wild Adventure, Maple and Sally. So I think this backup is really annoying. First of all, it's a 3K backup, and When you use it, the opponent puts X card from the bottom of his deck, his or her deck, into the waiting room, where X is equal to the number of your game characters. So imagine the opponent is planning to refresh safely, you know, he's using a Climax, he's planning to refresh safely, and then you disrupt his deck state. That's really annoying. Then one Climax is left out from the deck. He or she refreshes with one less Climax, and so it's an annoying card. So I think it's more useful than this backup here, this 2-1 backup, which is the anti-change backup, because this anti-change backup is also quite annoying because when you use it, you discard 2 cards and then you shoot the early plays from the opponent to memory, which is annoying. But I decided to use this one because first of all, discarding 2 cards from hand with the finishers that we have is not a good idea. So I don't feel comfortable with it. But I think that this milling backup is even more disruptive. This is a flex spot. We can put another maxing out maple instead of this, or we can put this card here. This card in the middle here, Sort Down Sally. It's probably not needed in the current meta, but in the future it might become relevant basically. So this card here basically it allows to kill the memory of your opponent. Basically, the memory of your opponent, of your memory, and also the one of your opponent must contain maximum 4 cards. So it is we would use it just for that purpose because the rest is irrelevant. But at the moment there is no need to use this card. When Saikano was active, was not banned, this card would have become quite relevant. So at the moment, I think this backup is the best choice. But this is a flexible spot, and in the future you can change it to whatever you like, to whatever you are more comfortable with among these cards here. Then we have one copy of Machine God Maple. This is a stock swap, so it's a level 3. And when you place it, you pay 1 and you stock swap your opponent. So it is a tech card in a single copy. However, there have been games in which my opponent, knowing that I had this card, basically spends most of his stock and at the same time has a compressed deck. And I don't know what to do in those situations. So I have decided to include one single copy of this Climax, of these pants. Okay, so have one less copy of the book Climax of our restander that we will see later, but replacing it with one single copy of this Climax here, because in those situations in which the opponent has not much stock, so stock swapping the opponent doesn't make much sense, but at the same time has a very compressed state in his deck, then you can use its combo, the Icy Tail for 4. Okay, so I use this in a couple of situations. It was highly effective, and exactly for this purpose, I decided to include a punt and instead of a book, and so we have now in the deck 5 punts and 3 books. Okay, so you mainly use it for the stock swap, but if you have the conditions that I just described, in which the stock swap will not be effective and the compressed state of the opponent is something you cannot deal with, then you have this combo, okay, accessible at least. So you had the option. You had the option at least. Okay, so then we have three normal healers. Young Genius Canade. It's not Canada. It's Canada. Um, so this is a very, very, let's say, standard card, nothing special. It comes at full field, so it's easy to place, and it heals normally. And when this card is placed from the stage or from your end, if you have another game character, it gets plus 2k. So it's quite vanilla, so it's reasonably big in your turn, and it's just there to heal. Okay, this is the only weak point of the deck, and I will describe this weak point later. And then we have 4 copies of the Restander, Marble Muffler, Sully. Now, this Restander, importantly, is a healer. Okay, so in total we have 7 healers together with this. It's a healer. It's very important because you basically have the option to resist more in the game, okay, and to basically because you see the restander you never know how it goes because you don't know what you're triggering. Perhaps you deal too much damage or if you trigger at the wrong moment, so you want to live as long as possible. So it is very important that this card is a restander, is a healer. So when this card attacks, if you have any other another game character, this card gets plus 1500. So if you attack twice, this gets plus 3k. Okay, and then at the end of the attack, importantly doesn't need the reverse, you pay 2, discard 2 cards, and restand. Okay, now this card is quite good. It's not an awesome finisher. Okay, I wish we had something different, but at least it's a healer. And Bofuri does not have truly outstanding finishers that are also healers. There is the -2 soul thing, which is terrible in my opinion. So this is the only option at the moment as a finisher. Another drawback is that there is a book Climax. The book Climax is good for this particular effect because it gives you card in hand, so it helps with the discard requirements of this restander. However, it's not the best trigger. Of course, if you trigger book, you're going to draw something random and possibly another climax. Books draw other books. But yeah, I mean, it's decent. It does the job, let's say. It does the job. And I have to say that I enjoyed playing this restander because it deals a lot of damage and multiple times, and very often especially after a stock swap, the opponent just cannot deal with all the damage that it deals. So yes, and there is not much to say on this. The most important thing here is that it's also a healer. And then 2 copies of this awesome card, Giant Killing Mei and Yui. So this is a normal Musashi, but it costs only 1 stock if you place it at full field. So it allows you to maintain stock for your restander, and it allows you to triple level 3 with just a small number of stock, a small amount of stock. Okay, so I think in this deck this Musashi is really good because you can imagine you have something like 2 of these Musashi and 1 Restander, or 2 of these Restander and 1 Musashi. This is a lot of damage that you deal with the Musashi effect and with the Restanding effect. So I think the combination of these two is really pretty good. Okay, so in my games, I basically whenever I put 2 Restanders and 1 Musashi, or 2 Musashi and 1 Restander, it's over. The game is over for the opponent if it is in the right deck state. Okay, so let's discuss about the climaxes. So we have 4 climaxes, 4 punts for the combo level 1, 3 books for the combo for the Restander combo level 3, and 1 other punt for the stock swap icy tail. Okay, I think this combination is the most appropriate one. So we have basically access to all of these climaxes during the game because of the 5 pans that when we trigger we can take any climax from the waiting room. So I think it's fine. I think it would be a little bit dangerous to put 6 pans and 2 books, because then if the books are lost somewhere in the stock or whatever, then it becomes difficult to retrieve the book for the restander. So I think this is the safest option. And of course they give you a plus in hand that can help with the discard requirements of our restander. Quite often it happens that you put, I don't know, 2 restanders and 1 Musashi, and then at the end you don't have the cards in hand for the second restander. However, if you attack multiple times, you remember the restander attacks twice, you increase your chances to trigger one of these climaxes, and then you have instantly the cards in hand that you need to discard for the secondary standard. So it happens, it happens. Okay, the synergies. Let's discuss now about the synergies of this deck. The synergies of this combination of level zeros drastically reduce randomness. So we have already seen the top check 2 of the Sully with the Ricky. Um, it's a combination that is very effective. Also, of course, if that with the top check 2 you see that there is a climax, it's about time to brainstorm. And you can rearrange the highest level of the 2 cards that you look at to use the Rico, and then salvage whatever you like in the waiting room. And we have 3 different ways to discard unwanted climaxes from hand. We have, of course, the climax recycler. Maple, we have this one. If you put a climax, you can discard and draw. And then we have the Rico. So we have different discard options. The ideal starting hand is this one. So you want to start the game with the Maple, because there are high chances that she lives one more turn. And ideally, of course, you want to keep 1 copy of your Climax combo, the Climax, and then these 2 cards here, the top check 2 and the Riki, because at some point you want to use it to have some good advantage in hand. Okay, so this is kind of the ideal starting hand that you, in the ideal world, you would have. The only weak point of this deck is anti-heal, because both the let's go back here. Both the restander and the early play, they heal from clock to waiting room. So if you're playing in Japanese format, and for example against Grisaya, um, it's and the opponent puts in memory the anti-heal, then it's a problem. In that situation, you just need to rush your opponent. You want to be, you want to rush. The strategy, I think, is to rush your opponent. So you cannot heal basically without discarding cards or paying some other cost. And so it becomes, the strategy that you have to use during the game is different. You have to try to soul rush your opponent, slamming climaxes at every turn, more or less. And yeah, it is. I mean, these level zeros here, of course, they go to memory. So there is this card which at some point I thought to include, but then I saw it was completely useless. When this card is placed on the stage from your hand, choose one of your opponent characters, and that character gets the following ability. This card cannot be returned to hand or put into memory. So this would be just a temporary remedy for the level 0 anti-healing Grisaya, not even the second one, because the second one you can just, the opponent can just pay 2 and put it in memory. And so this is not a good idea to put this card. So we have to live with this. You just soul rush your opponent if you are in this situation. This kind of anti-heal, however, it is easily counterable. This is the administrator deck. So you just level down it, okay, with the level downer. Okay, future modifications to this deck, if there is a second set, of course, which I really hope. We have to change the finisher, the standard. So if there is a blue finisher which is highly effective, more effective, or at least less random than the restander, then it would be very welcome. And that would be the only change to do. It also depends on the type of climax. Perhaps pants, perhaps another book, something that gives you advantage, of course, not something like not something strange. But either pants or book is fine. But if in the second set there is another type of finisher, then it would be very welcome, and it's definitely a change that I would make. It, of course, it has to be seen what kind of a finisher we have if there is a second set. Okay, so this ends my discussion of the Pants book Bofuri Anti-Meta. I think this deck has the potential for, at the current moment, to deal with any possible situation, any possible things that the opponent can throw at you. And it has been very successful in my games. Really, really, it's unbeaten. It's unbeaten. 100% win. Well, it's up to you if you want to believe me or not. But it was incredibly. The flow of the game was incredibly smooth, easy, and I found that I didn't have any feeling of being, you know, disadvantaged with with against anything during my games. So yeah, it is also a bit surprising because if you look at the individual effects of the cards, they're so random that you would think that you are left to chance. But I have to say that the synergies are amazing, and they work very well together. And I tested it now with many many games, and it is an incredible deck. So try to play it, try to build it. It takes a while to play it correctly because you have to learn the synergies, little synergies, the deck, and yeah, and I wish you have fun with this deck and let me know how it goes. So in the comments below there is the Anchor decks list. And yeah, so leave me comments. I'm happy to hear your opinion about this, your experiences. See you soon.